All right, so here's what I'm going to go through. This is OSHA 1926.1400 scope. Everywhere you look and try to find, most of all of our training generally wants you to go through and highlight certain things and come back and read them later, which is fine if that's what you're into. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read through what I feel is my opinion that is important, that you need to know. And so I'm going to start right off with right at the beginning. This is OSHA 1926.1400 scope. This is for the cranes and derricks in construction. This is stuff that you just at least needs to pass through your mind so that you know it. And feel free to watch this over and over or listen to it, however. But Unit A, this standard applies to power operated equipment when used in construction that can hoist, lower, and horizontally move a suspended load. Such equipment includes, but is not limited to, articulating cranes, such as knuckle booms, crawler cranes, floating cranes, cranes on barges, locomotive cranes, mobile cranes, wheel-mounted rough terrain, all-terrain, commercial, truck-mounted, and boom truck cranes. Multi-purpose machines when configured to hoist and lower, which means by means of a winch or hook, and horizontally move a suspended load. Industrial cranes such as carry deck cranes. Dedicated pile drivers, service mechanic trucks with a hoisting device, a crane on a monorail, tower cranes such as fixed jib, an example, hammerhead boom, luffing boom, and self-erecting, pedestal cranes, portal cranes, overhead and gantry cranes, saddle cranes, side boom cranes, derricks, and variations of such equipment. However, items listed in paragraph C of this section are excluded from the scope of the standard. Now, I'm not going to go through all of C. C is a very large section of this, and that's just telling you what is not covered in this standard. For example, dedicated drill rigs are not in this standard. There is a different standard for that though. Okay, so what is going to be covered is attachments. This standard applies to equipment included in paragraph A, which we just went over, of this section when used with attachments. Such attachments, whether crane attached or suspended, include but are not limited to hooks, magnets, grapples, clamshell buckets, orange peel buckets, concrete buckets, drag lines, personnel platforms, augers or drills, and pile driving equipment. So again, we're going to skip through 6. Feel free to look at that if you want. We're going to come over to 1926.1401, which is definitions. Now, in definitions, this is what you're going to go back to and you're going to use when somebody says, well, who's the assembly and disassembly director? It says right here, it's the first one, A/D director, which is your assembly disassembly director, means an individual who meets this subpart's requirements for an AD director. They're irrespective of the person's formal job title or whether the person is non-management or management personnel. Okay, so that's just the definition of what they are. An assembly disassembly director means an individual who meets the subpart requirements for an AD director. So down here, when you have that assembly disassembly director, they know what they're doing and it's under them. Articulating crane definition means a crane whose boom consists of a series of folding, pin-connected structural members, typically manipulated to extend or retract by power from hydraulic cylinders. That's what an articulating crane is. Assembly/disassembly means the assembly and or disassembly of equipment covered under this standard. With regards to tower cranes, erecting and climbing replaces the term assembly, and dismantling replaces the term disassembly, regardless of whether the crane is initially erected to its full height or is climbed in stages. The process of increasing the height of the crane is an erection process. That is assembly disassembly. Assist crane means a crane used to assist in assembling or disassembling a crane. Attachments means any device that expands the range of tasks that can be done by the equipment. Examples include, but are not limited to, an auger, drill, magnet, pile driver, and boom attached personnel platform. That is attached, the definition of attachments. Audible signal means a signal made by a distinct sound or series of sounds. Examples include, but are not limited to, sounds made by a bell, horn, or whistle. Blocking, also refers to as cribbing, is wood or other material used to support equipment or a component and distribute loads to the ground. It is typically used to support lattice boom sections during assembly, disassembly, and under outrigger and stabilizer floats. That's blocking. The boatswain chair means a single point adjustable suspension scaffold. Consists of a seat or sling, which may be incorporated into a full body harness. It is designed to support one employee in a sitting position. So that's boatswain chairs. They're not used a lot in this industry, but they are. You might come across it, you might not, but you need to know what a boatswain chair is. A bogie means travel bogie, which is defined below. Boom, equipment other than tower crane, means an inclined spar, strut, or other long structural member which supports the upper hoisting tackle on a crane or derrick. That is boom. Typically, the length and vertical angle of the boom can be varied to achieve increased height and reach when lifting loads. Booms can usually be grouped into general categories of hydraulically extendable, cantilevered type, lattice section, cable supported type, or articulating type. That is all under the definition of boom. And then we go into boom for tower cranes. On tower cranes, if the boom, an example, principal horizontal structure, is fixed, it is referred to as a jib. If it is movable up and down, it is referred to as a boom. So that's your hammerhead tower cranes. They have what's considered a fixed jib. It spins around, it does not raise up and down. A luffing tower crane has a boom that luffs up and down. Boom angle indicator means a device which measures the boom angle of the boom relative to horizontal. So it'll always be over a horizontal plane, and that's the boom angle indicator. Boom hoist limiting device includes boom hoist disengaging device, boom hoist shutoff, boom hoist disconnect, boom hoist hydraulic relief, boom hoist kickouts, automatic boom stop device, or derricking limiter. This type of device disengages the boom hoist power when the boom reaches a predetermined operating angle. It also sets brakes or closes valves to prevent the boom from lowering after power is disengaged. That is the boom hoist limiting device. Boom length indicator. It indicates the length of permanent part of the boom, such as ruled markings on the boom, or as in some computerized system, the length of the boom with extensions or attachments. That's the boom length indicator. Boom stop. Boom stop includes boom stops, belly straps with struts or standoff, telescoping boom stops, attachment boom stops, and back stops. These devices restrict the boom from moving above a certain maximum angle and toppling over backwards. So I'm going to read that again without all the small definitions. Boom stop. What boom stops are is they are a device that restrict the boom from moving backwards above a certain maximum angle in toppling over backwards. So on a lattice boom, you'll have these two cylinders that come up. As the boom gets real high, they'll make it where it can't go any higher. It's the boom stops. Boom suspension system means a system of pendants, running ropes, sheaves, and other hardware which support the boom tip and control the boom angle. This will be in lattice boom. You'll have a set of sheaves that come off one single. It's your boom hoist rope. Your boom hoist spool comes up and goes all through that. This whole system is considered your boom suspension system. It's just grouping it. That's the definition of it. Builder. Builder means the builder / constructor of the equipment. It's thrown in there. This again, we're just going over the definitions. Center of gravity. The center of gravity of any object is the point in the object around which its weight is evenly distributed. If you could put a support under that one point and it could be balanced, and you could balance the object on the support. So even whether or not, you know, at the other end, it's the point in which something will sit and teeter. That's your center of gravity. Or CG, you'll hear it a lot. People will say, that's where's the CG at? And that's what they're considering. They're asking, where is the center of gravity? Certified welder means a welder who meets nationally recognized certification requirements applicable to the task being performed. Climbing. Climbing means the process in which a tower crane is raised to a new working height, either by adding additional tower sections to the top of the crane, or by a system in which the entire crane is raised inside the structure. That's considered inside climbing. A come along means a mechanical device typically consisted of a chain or cable attachment at each end that is used to facilitate movement of materials through leverage. That is a come along. Competent person. You always want to remember what a competent person is and what this definition is. It gets used a lot in this industry. A competent person means one who is capable of identifying existing and predictable hazards in the surroundings or working conditions which are unsanitary, hazardous, or dangerous to employees, and who has the authorization to take prompt corrective measures to eliminate them. That is a competent person. Controlled load lowering means lowering a load by means of a mechanical hoist drum device that allows a hoisted load to be lowered with maximum control using the gear train or hydraulic components of the hoist mechanism. Controlled load lowering requires the use of the hoist drive motor rather than the load hoist brake to lower the load. That's something that you won't come across a lot, but they're going to ask you. You're going to come across questions, and that's just something that you need to know. These are definitions. You'll get into the rest of this. I mean, the definitions pages of this is a couple pages long. So I might skip over some, but I'm going to try not to, because this is stuff that it needs to run through your head. So we went through, and I tried to explain the importance of knowing what a competent person is. Here we're going to go over the controlling entity. You definitely need to know who is the competent person and what it means to be a competent person. Okay, so same way with controlling entity, it means an employer that is a prime contractor, general contractor, construction manager, or any other legal entity which has the overall responsibility for the construction of the project, its planning, quality, and completion. That is the controlling entity. Okay, so we're going to move on to counterweight. Counterweight means a weight used to supplement the weight of equipment in providing stability for lifting loads by counterbalancing those loads. That's a counterweight. Crane/derrick includes all equipment covered by this subpart. Pretty general, but that's what it is. A crawler crane. A crawler crane means equipment that has a type of base mounting which incorporates a continuous belt of sprocket drive track. Crossover points means the locations on a wire rope which is spooled on a drum where one layer of rope climbs up on and crosses over the previous layer. This takes place at each flange of the drum as the rope is spooled onto the drum, reaches the flange, and begins to wrap back in the opposite direction. It's the crossover points. Dedicated channel. This is another important one that if you're in this industry, you need to know this. A dedicated channel means a line of communication assigned by the employer who controls the communication system to only one signal person and crane, or to a coordinated group of cranes, derricks, and signal persons. That's a dedicated channel. That channel is dedicated. You need to go back over that, always know where it's at in the definitions, and be able to recite that. That's what a dedicated channel means. Dedicated pile driver is a machine that is designed to function exclusively as a pile driver. These machines typically have the ability to both hoist the material that will be pile driven and to pile drive that material. Dedicated spotter for power lines. This is a dedicated spotter, and in parentheses is for power lines. To be considered a dedicated spotter, the requirements of 1926.1428 signal person qualifications must be met, and his/her sole responsibility, only responsibility, is to watch the separation between the power line and the equipment, load line, and load, including rigging and lifting accessories, and ensure through communication with the operator that the applicable minimum approach distance is not breached. So as a dedicated spotter, that's your only job. You're not also doing a whole bunch of other things. You're there to be that dedicated spotter. Directly under the load means a part or all of an employee is directly beneath the load. Dismantling includes partially dismantling, such as dismantling to shorten a boom or substitute a different component. Drum rotation indicator. Drum rotation indicator means a device on a crane or hoist which indicates in which direction and at what relative speed a particular hoist drum is turning. Electrical contact. Electrical contact occurs when a person, object, or equipment makes contact or comes in close proximity with an energized conductor or equipment that allows the passage of current. Typically, we're always meaning with current is the electric current. Employer-made equipment means floating cranes, derricks, designed and built by an employer for the employer's own use. That's employer-made equipment. Encroachment is where any part of the crane, load line, or load, including the rigging and lifting accessories, breaches a minimum clearance distance that this subpart requires to be maintained from a power line. That is encroachment. Fall protection equipment means guardrail systems, safety net systems, personal fall arrest systems, positioning device systems, or fall restraint systems. That is your fall protection equipment. Fall restraint system means a fall protection system that prevents the user from falling any distance. The system is comprised of either a body belt or body harness along with anchorage, connectors, and other necessary equipment. Other components typically include a lanyard and may also include a lifeline and other devices. Fall zone means the area, including but not limited to the area directly beneath the load, in which it is reasonably foreseeable that partially or completely suspended materials could fall in the event of an accident. You can skip through those. Free fall means that only the brake is used to regulate the descent of the load line. The drive mechanism is not used to drive the load down faster or retard its lowering. So it's just, you're just letting loose the brake, and the weight of what's on the hook is it's in free fall. Hoist. The word hoist means a mechanical device for lifting and lowering loads by winding a line onto a drum. That is something you'll want to know. Hoisting is the act of raising, lowering, or otherwise moving a load in the air with the equipment covered by the standard. As used in the standard, hoisting can be done by means other than wire rope, hoist drum equipment. Excuse me. So, an insulating link device means an insulating device listed, labeled, or accepted by a nationally recognized testing laboratory in accordance with 29 CFR 1910.7. So, an insulating link, you'll come across that. Jib stops is the same type of device as a boom stop, but it's for a fixed or luffing jib. List. This is something that I did never know until I got into cranes and derricks, like studying this material. List, because I have never been around the maritime water, but list means the angle of inclination about the longitudinal axis of a barge, pontoons, vessel, or other means of flotation. So if you're here's the barge and you got a crane or something on it, it's how list is how much it's going forward and backwards in the water. Load Load refers to the objects being hoisted and or the weight of the objects. Both uses refer to the objects and the load attaching equipment such as the load block, ropes, slings, shackles, and any other ancillary attachment. So the load, I'm going to skip through this, I'm going to say this again. The definition of load is the load attaching equipment, which is the load block, the ropes, the slings, the shackles, and what you're picking. It's all part of the load. Load moment or rated capacity indicator. A load moment indicator means a system which aids the equipment operator by sensing the overturning moment of the equipment. An example, load multiplied by radius. It compares this lifting condition to the equipment's rated capacity and indicates to the operator the percentage of the capacity at which the equipment is working. Lights, bells, or buzzers may be incorporated as a warning of an approaching overload condition. That is the load moment indicator. The load moment limiter means a system which aids the operator by sensing, directly or indirectly, the overturning moment of the equipment. Load multiplied by radius. It compares this lifting condition to the equipment's rated capacity. And when the rated capacity is reached, it shuts off power to those equipment functions, which can increase the severity of loading on the equipment. So it limits the hoisting, telescoping out, or luffing out. Typically those functions which decrease the severity of loading on the equipment remain operational. An example, lowering load, telescoping in, or luffing in. Because if you telescope in, your cable is going to go out, so it's going to take the weight off of it, and you'll be losing weight. So you're not going to gain weight. If you boomed out or telescoped out, the cable would be getting tighter, and you lift the load up, which could then topple the crane over. So that's the load moment limiter. The load moment indicator. That system lets you know how much you're picking up. It tells you how much by calculating it. The system itself, the computer system, the LMI, that's what you call it, is an LMI, is a load moment indicator, will let you know how heavy it is. The load moment limiter is going to tell you what we got to a certain point, and that's all we can lift, or we're going to tip over. So it stops all those functions. A locomotive crane means a crane mounted on a base or car equipped for travel on a railroad track. A luffing jib limiting device is similar to a boom hoist limiting device, except that it limits the movement of the luffing jib. Marine work site means a construction work site located in, on, or above the water. Mobile crane means a lifting device incorporating a cable suspended lattice boom or hydraulic telescopic boom designed to be moved between operating locations by transport over the road. That is a mobile crane. Moving point to point means the times during which an employee is in the process of going to or from a workstation. Okay, so nationally recognized accrediting agency is an authorization that, due to its independence and expertise, is widely recognized as competent to accredit testing organizations. Examples of such accrediting agencies include, but are not limited to, National Commission for Certifying Agencies and the American National Standard Institutes. Those are nationally recognized accrediting agencies. Non-conductive means that because of the nature of condition of the materials used and the conditions of use, including environmental conditions and conditions of the material, the object in question has the property of not becoming energized. That is non-conductive. That's something that has the properties of not being able to become energized. Operational aids. Operational aids are devices that assist the operator in the safe operation of the crane by providing information or automatically taking control of a crane function. These include, but are not limited to, the devices listed in 1926.1416 listed operational aids. So like I said, we are in 1926.1401 definitions. So we'll get to that at some point. Operational controls means levers, switches, pedals, or other devices for controlling equipment operation. Operator means a person who is operating the equipment. Overhead and gantry cranes. They include overhead bridge cranes, semi-gantry, cantilever gantry, wall cranes, storage bridge cranes, launching gantry cranes, and similar equipment, irrespective of whether it travels on tracks, wheels, or other means. Pendants. Pendants includes both wire and bar type. Wire type are a fixed length of wire with mechanical fittings at both ends for pinning segments of wire rope together. Bar type, instead of wire rope, a bar is used. Pendants are typically used in a lattice boom crane system to easily change the length of the boom suspension system without completely changing the rope on the drum when the boom length is increased or decreased. Proximity alarm. Proximity alarm is a device that provides a warning of proximity to a power line and that has been listed, labeled, or accepted by a nationally recognized testing laboratory in accordance with 29 CFR 1910.7. A qualified evaluator is not a third party. It means a person employed by the signal person's employer who has demonstrated that he or she is competent in accurately assessing whether individuals meet the qualification requirements in this subpart for a signal person. That is a qualified evaluator. That's a qualified evaluator, not a third party. This is a qualified evaluator, third party. It means an entity that, due to its independence and expertise, has demonstrated that it is competent in accurately assessing whether individuals meet the qualified requirements in this subpart for a signal person. So now we go to qualified person. This is another important one that we go back and forth with. A qualified person means a person who, by possession of a recognized degree, certificate, or professional standing, or who, by extensive knowledge, training, and experience, successfully demonstrate the ability to resolve problems relating to the subject matter, the work, or the project. A qualified rigger is a rigger who meets the criteria for qualified person. So, range control limit device is a device that can be set by an equipment operator to limit movement of the boom or jib tip to a plane or multiple planes. Range control warning device is a device that can be set by an operator to warn that the boom or jib tip is at so those are limiting devices and warning devices that you can set, so when you get too close to something, it'll either stop you from going there or let you know that you're approaching that. And there's a few companies out there that make these, that once you get them set up in your crane, say you can't hit another crane that's next to you, or you can't go over somebody else's airspace, something like that. Rated capacity means the maximum working load permitted by the manufacturer under specified working conditions. Such working conditions typically include a specific combination of factors such as equipment configuration, radius, boom length, and other parameters of use. Rated capacity indicator, see load moment indicator. It's the same, it's there in the LMI. Running wire rope means a wire rope that moves over shivs or drums. Side boom crane means a track type or wheel type tractor having a boom mounted on the side of the tractor used for lifting, lowering, or transporting a load suspended on the load hook. The boom or hook can be lifted or lowered in a vertical direction only. So it's getting its horizontal moving by tracking back and forth or driving back and forth. Stability means the tendency of a barge, pontoons, vessels, or other means of flotation to return to an upright position after having been inclined by an external force. Let's go down here. Superstructure means the upper works. Tagline. Tagline means a rope, usually a fiber, attached to a lifted load for purpose of controlling the load from spinning in pendular motions, or used to stabilize a bucket or magnet during material handling operations. Tender. Tender means an individual responsible for monitoring and communicating with a diver. Tilt up or tilt down operation means raising / lowering a load from the horizontal to vertical or vertical to horizontal. It's tilt up or tilt down. Tower crane. Tower crane is a type of lifting structure which utilizes a vertical mast or tower to support a working boom or jib in an elevated position. Loads are suspended from the working boom, while the working boom may be of the fixed type or have luffing capabilities. It can always rotate to swing loads, either by rotating on top of the tower, top slewing, or by the rotation of the tower, bottom slewing. The tower base may be fixed in one location or ballasted and movable between locations. Mobile cranes that are configured with luffing jib and or tower attachments are not considered tower cranes under this section. So travel bogies on tower cranes is an assembly of 2 or more axles arranged to permit vertical wheel displacement and equalize the loading on the wheels. So we talked about list a little bit ago. Here's trim. Trim means the angle of inclination about the transverse axis of a barge, pontoon, vessel, and other means of flotation. Tube blocking. Tube blocking means a condition in which a component of the uppermost on the hoist line, such as the load block, hook block, overhaul ball, or similar component, comes in contact with the boom tip, fixed upper block, or similar component. This binds the system, and continued application of power can cause failure of the hoist rope or other component. So tube blocking means is this is your ball and your line comes up to your boom tip. If the ball goes all the way up and hits your tip and you keep pulling up on it, it will pull the cable out of the ball and then the ball will fall. It usually just doesn't fall either. It usually goes somewhere, and so the tube blocking is a device, or tube blocking, that's what tube blocking is when your ball hits the end of your boom tip, comes up and hits in your boom tip. And that is where we're going to stop with this one, because that's the end of definitions. Next we'll go into ground conditions. Again, I'm just doing this so that you can listen over it while you're doing something else. Let this stuff flow through so that you have an understanding of what these definitions to this stuff is. I'll touch back more on the most important parts of these definitions later in another video, because a lot of times when we're out here on jobs, people want to say, well, I'm the competent person, but yet they don't really know what it means to be the competent person. So much in our industry, somebody says something like, oh, this is a dedicated channel radio. The company has bought this frequency, dedicated channel. Nobody else could come in on this channel. Nobody. If it's a what is it, a VHF version or whatever, just a normal walkie-talkie, and they say you're going to be on channel 1.6, it's not a dedicated channel. But again, I could talk about that for a long time. We'll move on.